Just answering questions with WAPTech, playing catch-up, or tomatoes. Someone posted this comment. If the phone was tampered with by the killers, they might be able to run forensics to restore deleted files. I can do that on almost any hard drive. Haven't tried on a phone. I can restore data even if they reformat the hard drive. Wonder if they've tried that. And then the person posts some compliments and some nice statements towards me. Next, I can't stand the hours of streams with titles implying they're onto something and then they're just shooting the crap. Stuff like that has its place, keeping interest and maybe getting a bite here and there, kind of like fishing. Many are wastes of time and go crazy in tangents, but that's on them, I guess. I wish the detectives would give us a little more something. Have a nice evening. I actually prefer checking in with you on Delphi case as you cut the crap and babbling and get to the right data. No BS. You can handle criticism and you cite your sources. And the person compliments me. I don't like posting compliments about me because you can read them if you want to. The archives below. So, yes, some of these people infomercial things. It seems like they're trying to tease people forward, and then everybody who cites them even fails to tell me even what video it is. And if they do try to tell me what video it is, they get it wrong. And if they don't tell me what part of the 2-hour video it is, and then if they try to tell me, it's the wrong location. And I've done a rant about this. I wanted to address this information here really quickly. Hard drive data recovery. So that's what the video is going to be about, partially. And I'm going to use some of the person's comments as the title. So here we go. When you reformat a hard drive or delete an individual file, or a whole directory structure, or all sorts of deletions you can do, what it does is it tells the information on the hard drive to only partially disappear. If you're not aware of what fragmentation is, or why you need to do a scan disk, here we go. You're looking at my face on the screen. It's a picture on your computer at that moment. It scans from the top down, and these blanked out areas here are not really important for recovery. They don't have to be there. There can be noise there, and you can mentally ignore them, or maybe it's really critically important because of some detail in the background. Depends. As this information is put into the image, there's a single line up here that represents this little wide line, about a line about that wide, and that's the entire line. And the picture is broken up in individual scan lines with color information, although it looks like it's purely black and white. Now, the way a hard drive is mapped, and some of you may remember it from the old days, it looks like this a lot. You may have noticed that it would take files that are fragmented and take 3 pieces and stick them together and pack them up to the top. That meant that the file had, at the beginning and ending of the first segment, links that told a file reader or a file system reader or an operating system, hey, look, over here's the other piece over here, that's this piece. And they were linked through file allocation tables. They were in various sectors and clusters and tracks, and you get the idea. And it's a lot like if you could make an audio recording on tape of a jam session you do. But you did the drums, then you did the bass, then you did the guitar, and then you did the voice. It's fragmented. You'd either put it together by splicing it together to where each took their time and their, took their turn, or you would overlay them over each other and mesh them together to make the audio sound like a piece of music. You can listen to people build a song dynamically. It's done a lot by DJs because they're demonstrating not that they're a DJ, but that they're a mixer or an audio geek who will sit there and build a piece of music literally the way I describe it. But they just let it keep playing in the background, and they build up a piece of music. Some of them are so good at it, you really think there's an entire band. Just like you can interleave and squeeze them together, just like this image is probably interleaved for you. This fragmentation capability that's allowed on a hard drive makes it run slower, but it means that you can write the information and then look for a dead space down here and write it over here so you can pack it down tightly. The files may be packed tight, but they may be broken up into pieces. Now let's talk about solid-state drives. Now on a hard drive, electromechanical drives, because they're slightly slower, and in the past much slower, there was a way of optimizing them where you would take all these broken files, and it didn't matter if you put them at the ass end of the drive, make them into one long file string, so to read in one shot. But if you didn't, sometimes they'd work okay. You'd still retrieve them, but it had to jump all over the place to get the file. So you defragment them. Now, solid-state drives come along. Solid-state drives read so fast that you don't really need to defragment them. They can read the information very, very rapidly. It's read just as fast as memory. By the way, memory also fragments without corruption. That's important. Now, again, the beginning and ending of each file would have an indicator saying where the next piece is. It's a jump. What if those jumps get damaged? Then you get an orphan or a fragmented file that is not able to be fixed. It needs to be patched. Or you have a program that has to go through and look for what is likely the missing piece. Sometimes they would fix it. Sometimes you'd end up with my face starting like this, and then it would end with my legs. Whatever. Now, that is important. And you can also have bad sectors. Bad sectors or bad sections of the drive are called a bad area. They're given a header somewhere that says this area isn't to be used from here to here. Now, if you're not aware of it, some file systems would make a dead file, a null file. That would be, this is a file and each of these sectors is linked, and they're just bad sectors for each of these positions on the drive, and it would act like they were there. And other file systems, all the fragments can be there, but they're referenced to a master file over here, so they don't have to have any information at all that would connect them to each other. On a cell phone or any other equipment using solid-state drives that have really high-speed access, one of the problems with them is they wear out fast. If you keep rewriting the drive, it will wear out quickly, and it won't wear out evenly. So this is taken care of using wear leveling. What that means is that the drive will keep track internally of itself where it's had information written. If it's been written to once, it lets you write here, but if you want to write new information, you have to write it somewhere it hasn't been written before. So all of the cells on it have the same amount of overwrites or write tos, and then it can read as many times as you want. So on a hard drive, data recovery may be difficult because the files will let you overwrite them, but on a cell phone it's almost impossible to completely erase anything unless you tell it to do so. Also, hard drives for a long time, most thumb drives and probably most cell phones implement a hardware level overwrite. If you tell it to erase the whole thing, it'll start at the beginning and just write zeros to it on a hard drive. On a cell phone, it has to write it a certain way in order to do it efficiently, not waste electricity, and also to where it really erases things. Depending on the type, it may not be as simple as writing just zeros. On an electromechanical hard drive, just writing zeros is all that's needed. It's a zero fill. A zero fill literally makes it impossible to recover it unless you do Herculean, extraordinary, heroic tasks for retrieving it. On the memory cells in a hard drive, they're magnetically polarized one way or another, usually up and down relative to the platters, but not always. And you can also erase them using a degausser. Basically, you magnetically nullify everything. Now, you notice I'm talking about it being magnetic fields and domains or cells on the platters. On the memory cells in a solid-state memory, they have something that records whatever it was coerced into doing, being a yes or a no for binary. They can also have multiple states. There can be 4 different states in here representing 2 bits, and it can have a 0, 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's 2 bits in binary, but 3 to you and me. That means it literally holds 4 states, one of them being off. And you can also, if you want to, have them record analog all the way to 256 levels. It can record a picture in grayscale, and each cell is a pixel. Somewhere in the middle there, a lot of the cell phones will use highly compressed methods for doing this, and it becomes much harder to truly erase them. You can watch videos of people in India taking out memory cards, SD cards, or micro SD cards, sanding off the back and finding the voltage control circuits and everything else so they can make the thing run at an artificially different trigger level for being 1 and 0 for each of these cells, or sample level. And that allows them to force it to cough up information that isn't quite a 1, isn't quite a 0, and it isn't really in the middle. It's up here or it's down here. It's just above or below the midpoint. And maybe find those other 4 levels, or 2 levels, excuse me. Or just find out it's binarily 1 or 0, but it wasn't really sure. Forcing it to make a decision. And now you get to the point here. With a hard drive, it's very easy to overwrite the information, and it's easy to rewrite it, which means you're going to lose information over time, but anything recent will be stored. On a memory cell-based NAND flash or whatever, solid-state drive or thumb drive, It almost never gets overwritten. Even if you want to, it won't, because it's trying to keep itself from wearing out, because these things have a limit on how often you can rewrite them. It can store information seemingly a very, very long time, or maybe forever. We don't really know yet. It's still kind of a young technology, not at least 20 or 30 years old yet. But retrieval would be easy. Or not. Do I think that the police or FBI or whatever did that? I don't know if they did the analog testing method, because all you have to do is scan the entire memory chip or group, look for any bad cells or clusters or whatever, arrays, and then, is it ambiguous in any way? You can actually do that on some of the memory cell or memory chips. You can test the cells to see if they're ambiguously 1 or 0 or they're in the middle or whatever. And if it got unambiguous data, you can immediately reconstruct all of the data from that, including stuff that's been erased, and usually figure out whether or not it's a JPEG or a WAV file or just some text file settings. And I've done that too, like this person who's commenting. On an electromechanical hard drive, again, you'll have more likelihood of overwrites because you can do them more often, but you still get all the data usually. The system won't normally overwrite previously written data. Now, there are exceptions. The operating system, Windows XP and up, can be programmed to always overwrite the most recent data with something innocuous like temp files, or not, well, that's not really innocuous, but something that would not be considered personally identifiable. That requires a judgment call on the operating system's part. And if you're being paranoid, what most people do is tell you, actually force it to run a full defrag. That usually kills everything off. Then have it erase all the temp directory stuff afterwards, and then have it defrag again. Because that causes so many overwrites that any orphaned pieces, stray pieces that had a connector, connecting information between the file segments, they will be irrationally broken. And now we get to the next part. File systems can also be encrypted, and many iPhones come by default encrypted. In case someone gets a hold of it, they can't read it without you putting in your password. How does it do that? One-time pad style. The memory chip itself has a code key on it. The other one is hidden in the operating system, and it's derived from you putting in a password or login, and it creates a hash code from it. You have to have the same question, answer, whatever. That's the same way your email works. And it uses that, along with this other number, does a math process and uses that as the method for decoding everything. If it doesn't have the information, it can't decode it. And that's the next way to encrypt or encode, and the best way, for your solid-state drives or your cell phone. Tell it to forget the internal password code set in the memory. It can never decode it, even if you have the password to log in. It completely destroys it, and it has to reformat it or treat it as if it was blanked. Hopefully this has been useful for all of you watching. And there's more to this than I brought up. That's a thumbnail sketch, and it took several minutes. But yeah, they've tried it, and they haven't told us what the outcome was, or if there were any anomalies. And they absolutely haven't shared the entire drive as an image, all unaltered yet, so that we can go check to see if they missed something. And if you're not aware of it, police departments almost never would allow geeks like me, who know what we know, to go double check their work because they're afraid we'll find out they made a simple mistake. And a lot of them don't care if that screws over a case. I don't think that about Delphi's police department or the FBI, but I've seen it happen locally in a couple of towns, like Portland. So I have a bias. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck.